All right, we're good.
All right.
That means go.
Awesome. So here we are, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska, celebrating 25 years of Focus. Tell me a little bit about kind of the start of how you guys met and how Focus got launched.
Thank goodness to Scott Hahn and Franciscan University, right? So we were both pursuing graduate studies together. And Ted was a year behind me, but we met and became fast friends.
In fact, the first time I met him, within 30 seconds, I was introduced to Curtis in the registrar's office when we were signing up for our classes for the semester. And he introduces himself and he says, yeah, I've got this dream. This is what I want to do. It's called Focus. He had the name already. I so remember he was so passionate about it. It's going to be a campus, Catholic campus crusade for Christ, evangelizing college students. And I was thinking, that is amazing. I'm so glad somebody's going to be involved to start something like that. Little did I know I would be involved a couple of years later.
Yeah, it was a couple of years later. I think that you were out at Benedictine College as an adjunct professor, and you invited Curtis to come out, and we know it is the coldest night on earth. What happened there?
That's right. Well, Dr. Sri had taken a position. It was Mr. Sri at the time. You didn't have your doctorate. You were done with your classwork. You were teaching at Benedictine, and you invited me to come out. And I thought, well, we'll give a talk on campus to a group of students. And then we had this idea, why don't we get a group, you could hand select a group of leaders. So there were people involved in campus ministry that were great, but there were other people who were involved in athletics or student government, and he went around and really cultivated for several months leaders we thought could transcend the cliques on a campus and get there. And we brought, 24 students?
About 24 students out in this little retreat center out in the prairies of Kansas. And it was amazing. Now, I'm a full-time professor and I'm working on my doctoral dissertation. So I had no plans of being involved in Focus. I just wanted to help my friend Curtis. And I saw, there's some good students here. Maybe we can find the right ones that, one day in the future, Curtis could start his Focus thing here at Benedictine perhaps. So we go out on this retreat and it's been labeled the coldest night on earth because really it was below zero. And the men's cabin, the heat went out. There was no heat. We
Cinder block cabin. Nobody told me there wasn't bedding. I didn't have a sleeping bag. So I've got everything in my suitcase, sweaters pulled up around me, and I'm just freezing all night long.
You could see your breath.
The first night.
As you were sleeping it, I was crazy. But I really think from that coldest night on earth, the flame of the Holy Spirit really just took off, because at the end of this retreat, it was just to introduce the idea of Focus. There was no plan. It wasn't like we strategized, let's start Focus now. It was just like introducing the idea to the students, and then the students were so on fire.
Yeah, it was a Christ-like leadership conference.
That's what we called it.
Put together, and as it was coming together, we realized they're actually going to want to start to lead like Christ. And so we're starting something that we're going to have to feed. And so it was really amazing. And I think the other piece about that, John, is that coldest night on earth was also a realization, this is going to be amazing, but it's not going to be comfortable. And so I think that's just a part of it, the realization of if you want to go on mission, whether you're St. Paul or whoever it is, St. Teresa's famous line, I see the way God treats his friends, it's no wonder he has so few of them. But to realize this is going to be challenging, but so amazing. Because really the response rate then and ever since, we presented this to 24 and most of them accepted the challenge.
They were all like, we want to start Focus now. And they said, Curtis, could we start now? And Curtis was like, well, I live in Ohio, but Professor Sri's here. He'll help you get started. And I was like, whoa, what? So that's how I got roped in. And then very quickly, we were writing Bible studies like that next week. So we're on the phone like Monday night, I think it was, and many Monday nights till like 1 or 2 in the morning, writing a Bible study over the phone. He's in Ohio, I'm there in Kansas. And then I would lead that Bible study the next day with a group of students. And then later that week, I would be meeting one-on-one with some of those students for coffee to train them in the Bible study so that they could lead a group the following week. So it was like we were making the whole thing up as we were going. But it was awesome because we had about 5 Bible studies started, 5 or 6. I think there were 3 women, 3 guys, 2 or 3 guys, and we had Bible studies going, and it was just taking off. And by the end of that first year, we had 70 people in one semester take off in it was that spring semester of 1998 when Focus was born.
Including a young Jared Conrady, who was the first guy to enter seminary through Focus. So he came in and was involved in Bible studies, went off, and he's a great priest. And so it was really kind of fun to see what happened. So God granted us fruitfulness from the very beginning, but it was very much smoke and mirrors and duct tape in trying to put it together. But it was fantastic because, we were spending literally hours on the phone talking about how we'd want to present the biblical principles to these young leaders. And it was great for us and for our friendship. It was great to watch this. We're not there yet, but it reminds me a little bit of how quickly God granted fruitfulness to you as you came on staff as a missionary.
Well, I think what's amazing is that very first Bible study that you guys wrote on Monday nights, back in the spring of 1998, which I then led as a missionary about a year later, was a really clever title called Book One.
Book One,
That's
beautiful,
a great
amazing
way to
branding.
start, yeah.
But we didn't know what to call the second book. Okay.
But it's interesting because those principles that are in that Bible study from 25 years ago are still in the Bible study that we lead today called the crux, the heart of it. In fact, I also think back to that, I want to come back to Benedictine in a second, but I was on staff for maybe 3 or 4 days, and we're in Colorado, and Megan Monahan at the time said, "John, are you excited about the leadership conference this weekend?" And I said, "What leadership conference this weekend?" "Oh, every year Focus has a leadership conference." Every year, Focus isn't even a year old yet, but she was referencing that very first Bible study or the very first retreat a year earlier. And of course, now we look today and the amazing fruits that come from Seek, the opportunity for people to encounter Christ and really experience transformation.
Seek really is a development, kind of an organic development over time from that first 24 students to now. I think we had 19,000 people there for adoration the middle night. And the opportunity, and then many tens of hundreds of thousands of other people watching via video feed, but to be able to see the snowball of grace continuing to grow every year. And sometimes people sit back and say, "Oh, well, how do you do Seek?" I'm like, well, you start really small and watch it grow. But it's been amazing to see, and in my interactions in life with both of you, to see you starting small, sometimes with very little resources, almost none, and then to be able just to start investing in people. And between the riches of the church, our own hopefully deep faith, and the willingness to dive deeply, I think of you taking the young people at Benedictine after that retreat and meeting at daily Mass, and then staying after Mass, just a small, tiny group, and just begging God for a renewal and revival at Benedictine College.
Yeah, that really was one of the most amazing, I think, experiences in ministry that I've ever had in my life. So we had that great, grace-filled first semester, and then we came back in the fall. So this is fall 1998. And at the beginning of the year, we did a retreat with the student leaders, a couple guys, a couple gals, and then I challenged them to a 6-week challenge. Let's commit together to go to daily Mass. They had a 9:30 p.m. Mass at Benedictine College. And I want to be clear, Benedictine College today is amazing. It's known as one of the top Catholic schools. We've all had kids that have gone there. It's awesome. It wasn't quite as strong in its Catholic identity in 1998. It was known as like this major party school, and so many kids actually went there and lost their faith. And we're caught up in the drinking scene and unchastity and all these things. So we were really battling a very secular culture, even though it was Catholic in name at the time. And we prayed for the campus. So we committed to go to this daily Mass when there'd be only 5 other students there. And we showed up every night at the 9:30 Mass. And then other students would leave, and then we stayed after the Mass and prayed for about 15, 20, 30 minutes. We went right up, right underneath the tabernacle, and we're just begging Jesus for conversions on campus. And we named all the different parts of the campus. We prayed for conversions on the football team. We prayed for conversions in student government, conversions in the business department, all the different departments. And we prayed for people to commit their lives to chastity, to commit their lives to sobriety. And the students were pouring out their hearts, and it happened. It was like you just saw over the next several months, one conversion after another in all these different areas. And people making radical decisions for Christ. They said, I'm not going to go to the parties anymore. I'm not going to get drunk anymore. And they were hated. They were
their
mocked.
friends turned on them.
They were ridiculed, and they suffered. They were like the early blood of the martyrs at Benedictine College. That was the fruit of so much renewal. But when you came, John, to that first event, which was the second annual leadership conference, you saw there were a number of key leaders on that campus that were in they were all different parts of campus life, and they got up and they were giving testimonies. They were converting. Some of them were talking to us about joining staff. It was amazing seeing that. And within just a couple of years, 1 out of 4 students at Benedictine College were going to Bible study each week with Focus. And then you start seeing dozens of vocations coming out of Benedictine College every year. Everyone, a third of the campus starting to go to daily Mass. It was this massive transformation. And there are many people involved in that renewal at Benedictine, but many of the leaders there would point to one of the most significant parts of the turning of the school was Focus.
And many dozens of Benedictine graduates becoming missionaries with Focus and going to other campuses all over the country and around the world, and really became a missionary sending center in a very short amount of time. So a place very much in need of mission, and we always are in need of mission, but then also a core part that was a mission sending, and it's continued to be that. You know, I have a first-year staff member here, my son Joshua, who went to Benedictine College and is a first-year staff member for Focus right now. And he's got two brothers who are here who were Benedictine grads as well.
Yeah, I think back to that second annual leadership conference that I went to in January of 1989. And I was a missionary for all of maybe 6 or 7 days. But I remember Joe Wirtz, who at the time was a senior at Benedictine College, but I didn't know. For all I knew, Joe was a staff member, because the way he had confidence in his faith and talking about his own personal conversion, talking about Christ-like leadership. I was sitting there watching going, it's a pretty high bar, not knowing that he was a student who had been involved for less than a year, you know, but that's what happens when you have a student who's on fire with Christ, and then we walk alongside them, accompany them, and give them some tools, and they can take the world by storm.
No, I mean, Joe at that time, along with Beth, weren't full-time missionaries. They were both seniors who I think were getting, $200 a month or whatever to help with expenses.
Part-time missionaries.
Yeah, they were part-time missionaries, and you were too, and we're paying you even less. And to be able to say this was just happening because God was moving in people's lives, and all of a sudden they wanted to share that experience with other people. And it radiated out from Benedictine College, as you know, because you joined us at Northern Colorado, that the following fall, we opened up also at Northern Colorado. And you became part of that team halfway through the year. And that first weekend or second weekend showed up with a leadership conference.
So tell me, Curtis, so Ted's at Benedictine College with a group of students who had been at a retreat 6 months earlier. You're driving in your car to Greeley at the University of Northern Colorado. Tell me about what that experience was like to set foot on campus.
Yeah, we had worked, as Ted mentioned, we had been together and praying. What we didn't say is even before Ted went off to Rome, he was already helping work out some of the theological realities and stuff, and so helping part-time. And he was like, how soon is this going to happen? I said, we're still a couple years away. And he said, okay, I'm off to get studies, and he was on to pursue where God was calling him. But so I had a lot of thought. Somebody asked me recently, so 25 years ago, you've been thinking about this. I said, actually, it was closer to 35 years ago. I'm just really slow. It took me 10 years to figure out how to actually do it. And Greeley was where it was going to happen. Yes, at Benedictine College, but I didn't live there. But Archbishop Chaput had invited me, us, our family, to move from Steubenville, Ohio to Greeley, Colorado. And I remember the first time I looked at the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, and I went into a cold sweat. I was like, this is in theory, this is going to be incarnated right here, and it's going to succeed or it's going to fail. And this is really hard. I had already done what most people think is the hard part, which was get my family packed up and move. That can be very tough, and I take nothing away from the difficulties of moves. But actually, for me, the harder part was, oh my goodness, all this thought, all this prayer is going to be tested in reality here. And yeah, it's going well at Benedictine College, but the very nature of what Focus does, it can't be a success someplace. It actually needs to be moving towards it being a success every place. And so it was great. And we had by that time hired 2 full-time missionaries, Mary Claire and Megan, and they were with me at Northern Colorado. And then we met you. Your younger sister Ann was involved in the program, and we met you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got there?
Yeah, no, my sister was involved in Bible study. She was involved in Megan Monahan's Bible study. And my wife and I had just got married, September 98, and we're on our honeymoon, and we're driving around the island of Kauai on a rental car, and this thought just comes into my head, we should start a Campus Crusade for Christ that is Catholic. And I thought, that's great. I had lots of experience with Catholic ministries that unfortunately did not really reach me with the gospel. And I'd experienced a Campus Crusade for Christ because my brother was involved, and he had the kind of friends that I wanted. And that was even before I had really surrendered my life to Christ. I just knew these guys were awesome. So this thought comes in my head, we should start Campus Crusade for Christ that's Catholic. So Barbara and I talk about it, and we're excited about the idea. Just one slight problem. I had 0 ministry experience. I had never even attended a Bible study, much less know how to lead one. I had no idea how to do this, but about 2 weeks after our honeymoon, I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and she says, John, have you talked to Ann lately? I said, no. It's before the time of cell phones, we can text people, so it required a long distance phone call. So she said, well, you should talk to her. She's involved in this group, John. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a Campus Crusade for Christ that's Catholic. And I'm pretty dense most of the time, but that one got my attention. So I really do think, had I not had that thought, which I know is the Lord prompting me, he's planting this little seed in my head. If I hadn't had that thought on our honeymoon, and my mom told me that story, I probably would have said, that's so awesome. I'm so glad somebody is doing this because it's really necessary. Yeah, but God prompted me to make me open. So yeah, we called you on the phone, and a couple weeks later, we're out visiting with you guys for a day, and 2 months later, interviewing. And then 2 months later, packed our bags up and left Seattle, left the corporate world, left sales, and went to go on a college campus.
What I love about the two stories, the Benedictine and you coming to Northern Colorado, is we're writing Bible studies literally hours before you're going to deliver them. We're here at New Staff Training. We are training hundreds of missionaries. You had no new staff training. Literally it was, John, let me lead a Bible study with you, and then from your memory, go do that with somebody else, either here at Northern Colorado or at CU Boulder. And yes, we want to do the best training we can, and more training is a good thing, but it is not necessary. Our joy of being a disciple and sharing inartfully, less fluently, certain concepts, but with great intent. Oh my goodness, this is so cool. Yeah, you can get better at that, but the most important part is has this changed your life? Because if it has, I want to hear about it. And but we've gotten better at the training, which is a beautiful thing. What I love is that we still have now hundreds and hundreds of full-time missionaries who have that fire, have that faith, and wanting to really share that with other people. I was just asked, well, how do you become a focused missionary? I said, well, first of all, you don't have to become a focused missionary to do this. Everybody can do this. Anybody can, and everybody should. But you can become a missionary and join us. We'll be hiring next year. But we're watching our benefactors. We're watching our alumni. We're watching people who've never been involved with our program, who are starting to live like missionary disciples and sharing their lives with one another and doing what we try to do: win, build, send. Win people to Christ, build them up in their faith, and send them out to win people to Christ, to build them up, to send, it's a song that never ends.
Let's go back into the timeline just a little bit, to make sure we get this right. So it's end of January 1998 is when we have the coldest night on earth. Focus is born there at that retreat. We're leading the Bible study.
Don't forget, you didn't tell me I had to bring a sleeping bag.
That's right. And then we had those original Bible studies being written. We're leading on campus. And then one part we didn't talk about was that first summer training. Yeah. So we think about here, we are, we have this amazing summer training, all of our missionaries, 1,000 people in, and it is just a machine running. That first summer training was in a house that I rented in Steubenville, and it was in the living room, and we were drawing the Bible timeline chart on a little Tykes chalkboard that some homeschooling family, I think the Supernauts, let us borrow. So it was really very rudimentary.
We had taken for the summer. We had stolen a little Tykes. We did return it. But,
so we go back to Benedictine. Things are starting to take off at Benedictine with the 6-week challenge that fall of '98. You and Michael Ann are moving out to Greeley, and you're there with Mary Claire and with Megan. And then John Zimmer comes onto the scene, January of 1999. John and Barbara, and you're starting. I want to hear tell me about what's happening in Colorado.
Yeah, well, one of the really vivid memories I have of that very first semester on campus, which, as Curtis, as you mentioned, the only training I had was a training of sitting in your living room and having you and Michael Ann lead Barbara and I through a Bible study. I think one Bible study. I sat in on one Bible study before I started leading my own. And God's doing amazing things. We talk about how God doesn't so much desire our ability as he does our availability. And I think I'm a perfect example of that. God was doing amazing things for me. God was doing amazing things for Barbara. We had no training. It was just people who were in love with the Lord setting foot on campus. But I remember one particular experience that is really present to me even to this day, where it was, I think we called it prime time. It was our Thursday night leadership event, large group leadership event.
Large group.
Yeah, large group, about 40 people. And we were sharing with them how to share their own personal testimony. And we're meeting with these students in small groups, and you and myself and the missionaries are split up. And after all the students left, it was just a moment of extraordinary discouragement.
Yeah, we had broken up, and Barbara led a group, and Mary Claire led a group, Megan led a group, you and I had led a group, and what we discussed, each of us had kind of a deflating experience that even was kind of like, the wires aren't connecting. And as we began to speak and debrief on what we happened, we realized of all these students that we'd been working with for months, none of them had a testimony. None of them had really experienced in a personal way the love and mercy of Jesus Christ. And so we've been working and working and working, and it's like, putting frosting on something that isn't a cake, a car bumper or whatever. And it was just, we're like, oh my goodness, are we wasting our time?
Yeah.
It was devastating.
So I'll always remember your leadership in that experience, Curtis, because we're all discouraged. We're, questioning, is this even something that we should be doing? I mean, we don't want to be wasting our time doing something that is not the Lord's bidding.
And just to kind of put it it wasn't pretty there involved. There was a lot of tears, a fair amount of mucus. It was a very emotional, very uncomfortable moment.
Yeah.
It was devastating for us.
It was a moment of, I had just moved. I was working for a great tech company making good money, and I moved out here, and my father
The shortest career ever.
Not quite sure what I was doing. I had just married his daughter. And here 2 months later, and then you just took it to prayer. And one of the things that you prayed was that if God, you do not want to bless this effort, that you would just crush focus, because we do not want to do anything that's contrary to your purposes. And I think about that frequently, because at the end of the day, this is not our mission. The three of us sitting around this table, our spouses, this is not our mission, this is God's mission. Yeah. And really at the end of the day, if the Lord does not want to bless focus for the next 25 years or for the next year, that Lord, please crush focus. We do not want to be at cross purposes with what you intend.
No, I think it's really critical. The lesson that I would take from that is that we need to live in continual, absolute dependency on God. And we're a tool in his toolbox. And if he decides, I don't want a flat edge screwdriver, I want a Phillips, and he puts us down and it's over, we're okay with that, because he's the worker. At the same time, if you want to keep using this Phillips head screwdriver called focus, we want to be as well prepared and ready to serve as we can be. And it's hard not to begin to dream a little bit, as we have for 25 years, and as now we look forward to 25 more. What could this be? And my experience would be that the world is actually worse than it was 25 years ago, but the bright spots in the church are actually brighter. The vocations of the priesthood and religious life, they're younger, they're vibrant young families that are having lots of children frequently, some of them struggling to have children, but they're this amazing faith. That, when I was thinking and praying about what would become Focus, that was not the church I knew. It was in ashes. To try to find a faithful priest was a chore. To find a religious woman under the age of 70 was hard. And to be able to see there's real renewal, and God willing, if it could go for another 125 years, wow. And at the same time, if not, I don't want to be saying, no, you've got to use this screwdriver. Lord, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, amen.
But the screwdriver, so much to give thanks for, what the Lord has done through Focus. I just think about all that did come out of Greeley and a number of vocations, and then the work that you started doing down in Boulder, at CU Boulder, and that Bible study that you led down there. How many priests came out of that?
Yeah, the Bible study that I led in Greeley, the one that I led a day after being in your living room, I calculated it once 6 weeks to the day after I began to lead that Bible study. One of the guys in that Bible study had a conversion right in the middle of the Bible study. So much so that none of us knew it at the time. But the Lord spoke to him, convicted him of his sin, invited him into the mercy. And that today is Father Greg Peterson. His buddy, Father Peter Mussett, is the chaplain down at the University of Colorado Boulder. And then two of the guys down at the University of Colorado Boulder became priests. So 4 guys in that very first year ended up joining the seminary and becoming priests. And it's just fun. I mean, for a guy who literally did not know what he was doing.
But you made yourself available, and you were praying. And I love Father Greg's story, because to me it's a beautiful thing, because Father Greg actually went through Focus as a Protestant. Yeah. We're pretty Catholic, but there's no pressure. And he actually went all the way through Focus as a Protestant, left, graduated, went to Protestant seminary for a year, and then converted to Catholicism. Father Peter became his sponsor in the church, and they're both Catholic priests today. But the whole point is, it's not our job to push people into the Catholic Church or even into faith in Christ. Our job is to present the truth with love and let God work. And if that means that you're going to remain a Protestant or even a non-believer, we still love you, right? And so I love the fact that his very life speaks to the fact that this is not a pressure organization. This is a passion organization that is trying to share the love and goodness of Christ and the fullness of truth and grace in the Catholic Church. And people have been responding consistently. Sometimes in a very short, his conversion to Christ was very short, 6 weeks. His conversion to Catholicism, a little bit longer, several years.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks be to God.
I want to ask one more story. So I was missionary on campus for a couple of years, and I started working at our national office, which had about 3 people in it. And I remember in the very first months when I was at the office, you invited me into your office and said, John, I have this opportunity. A friend has made himself available that he could potentially come and work for Focus and take a key role in the operations and helping Focus grow. You've been with Focus though for a few years, and I think you have potential. Is that something that you'd be interested in? Because I want to be thoughtful about that. And I said, I'm thrilled that there's somebody else that wants to come in and help. But tell us a little bit about that person that came in.
Yeah, Craig Miller is the individual, and Craig has been one of the greatest gifts in my life, along with the 2 of you and Michael Ann, my children. I mean, it really has been a blessing. But Craig, I actually met Craig really, really early. His brother Joe was actually a founding board member with Focus. Tim Gray introduced me to him. Tim was living out in Virginia, and that's where Joe Miller still lives, but at the time was living. And Joe had made some money in the high-tech world, and he was wanting to help get off the ground, and so he joined on the board. And so before the very first board meeting of Focus, I met with Joe and his brother who lived in Colorado, Craig. And Craig also had made a fair amount of money in high tech, but the company he was working with had gotten into some bad stuff, pornography and stuff like that. And he was high enough up that he could talk to the leader, and he goes, I think this is a bad idea. And he goes, no, there's a lot of money here. And so Craig was like, I gotta leave. So he walked away. And so I met him, and he was early retired, looking for the next thing in high tech. But he was here in Colorado, and the guy is just brilliant. And all the practical, he's a man of deep faith, and he knows the faith, and he can lead a Bible study very well, but also just can figure out how to get stuff done. He's the kind of guy where you walk, we sit down and we're like, okay, we think these 3 options are what we have, and this is the best one. And Craig walks in and he goes, well, here's 2 other options. And we're like, and they're both better than those 3. And he does it over and over and over again. And he's helped us to get, because we want to recognize that, and this is true for everything we do, that grace presupposes and then builds on nature. So we want to offer God the best nature we can, and then allow him to transform it, to bless it, to multiply it. We're okay with not bearing fruit if God says, I'm not going to give you fruit. But if he's going to grant us fruit, and the question is, do you want more or less? We all want to bear as much fruit as we can. And that's where learning how to collaborate. I think of somebody who's gifted at sailing. They're just going to be able to capture the wind's energy better than somebody who barely knows what they're doing. And that's what we're hoping at this point in Focus, that we're learning the craft of evangelization. It's still all grace, but there is a craft that collaborates with that. And Craig has been a great collaborator with all of us. The whole hope was, we want to do campus ministry because it's the most leveraged place in the culture. In the world's culture, particularly American campus ministry, there are more international students studying in the United States than any other country. So if you could reach the world without ever leaving the United States. We also want to leave the United States, but it's an amazing place to start, and the university is just so leveraged. But it's never been the end game. We want to make disciples of all nations, and most people on earth aren't at college. And so it's always been, can people become lawyers and doctors and politicians? And I have an opportunity to have dinner later this evening with the governor of Nebraska, and he's living as a disciple and making heroic decisions. And he'll be with us at a large group event to sit back and say, I wanted my Catholic faith to have an impact on the broader culture. And he's made some heroic decisions about life and marriage and living his faith. We need hundreds, thousands more like him, but in every area of life, including priests and nuns, but moms and dads. And so in some ways for me, both of you guys, Craig as well, we've been walking for a long time together, a couple decades. You guys model this very much for me. It's a beautiful thing. And the amount of encouragement and inspiration. And so while we have done a lot of Bible studies together, you never led me in a Bible study, but you led me in a lot of ways to more deeply appreciate the scriptures, both of you have. And what, not just what they mean, but what they mean for me in my life. And I think that's the key we're trying to help people do.
Well, I know we're both grateful that we got roped in on this. My life wouldn't be the same without Focus. It's one of the greatest gifts and graces to be a part of this awesome mission.
No, I think about the formation that I've received while at the same time I was delivering it. I mean, in some ways it's humorous. I was involved in helping to plan our second new staff training, and I hadn't even been to a training yet. And, I think of how I have been transformed by the very formation that I am actually delivering to others and receiving. Right? When we begin to lead others is when we take it much more seriously. I'm just a different man, a different husband, a different father as a result of our friendship and just the graces that we've received. So. Amen.
Well, as St. Ignatius of Loyola closed all of his meetings with the young Jesuits with the phrase, "Go set the world on fire," that echoed through St. Catherine of Siena, who said, if we are what we're meant to be, if we become who we're meant to be, we will set the world on fire. My invitation, gentlemen, is 25 more years. Let's go set the world on fire.
Amen.